like exhausted all the possible options.
I
And
see.
instead of staying in the States, I chose to go back to Nigeria. Why did you leave America for the
Yes.
UK? Well,
Yes.
no, that's not what happened.
And that's why
I
I
left
asked.
America and I
I
went
thought
back
that
home.
too. Okay.
I went back home, and when I went back home, I worked in banking. So I did something called NYC, which is what every Nigerian is supposed to do if you graduate uni before the age of 30.
Well, hello, my people. This is your host, Mike Demba. My incredible guest today. To you, he's Pereyi Ogidi-Oke. To me, and only me, he's Ogidi boy, okay? Because I've known this guy for over 2 decades. Can you believe that, bro? Oh,
Wow, yeah, it's unbelievable to think
wow.
sometimes. Time flies.
Time flies. So welcome to STEM to Roots. Here at
Thank
STEM to Roots, we plan on talking our way into a plan, brother. So thank you for coming. Um,
It's my pleasure.
this you just making this sit down happen is something I waited for a long time, and you know this. So I've been wanting you here for many reasons that my people will find out as I peel this onion. So this is how I want to go about this, right?
Sure.
I would make you introduce yourself, and this is why I want them to patiently listen to our conversation, and they'll get to know you along the way. Fair?
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's
All
fair.
right, let's start there. So, bro, tell me, where were you born and where did you begin your early education?
Okay, so I was born in Nigeria, originally Ibadan, which is part of Oyo State in
Okay.
the southwest. But then we moved to Lagos very quickly after that. That's where I was born. That's where I started my education. But along the way, things evolved. Right. My father worked for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We got posted to Gambia. So I finished high school in Gambia, and I started uni in Senegal, where we were both in
Where we met.
undergrad. Exactly.
So that's how you ended up in Gambia. Did you start high school in Nigeria?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I finished junior high there. I started the equivalent of what a lot of people would call 10th grade.
Okay, makes
in
sense.
Nigeria, we call it SS1. I finished that in Gambia, and then I finished high school in Gambia.
Okay. I thought you did your entire high school in Gambia. So yes, and then from high school you ended up going to Dakar for uni. How did you end up in Dakar actually? Like how you heard about the school? How?
That's an interesting conversation, but I recall Sandro, who you also know, a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours.
Right.
But we were actually friends from high school. And he mentioned Gambia while we were about to write our O levels to finish like what we call WAEC, or what's called WASC now. That certificate,
yes.
exactly.
That's the one. Yes.
And he mentioned that he'd gone to some promotional session about an American university in Dakar, Senegal. And I was just like, mate, that just sounds odd. It sounds like you're talking about 2 weeks on classes, 2 weeks off, as opposed to a full semester. It just sounded strange to me.
It sounded sketchy.
But eventually, he applied, he got in, and I realized that also I had just not made as many plans to go to university abroad as I would have liked. My father was thinking of me relocating back to Nigeria.
Okay.
And at that point, I just did not want to.
Okay.
My family was all there in the Senegambia area, so were my friends. And at that time, it just occurred to me that, wow, let me take a look at this American school that our good friend had brought up, and that's how I applied to Dakar, and I got in.
And for those that don't know, Gambia and Senegal are that close, so you wanted to stay close to family. Your dad was a diplomat, a Nigerian diplomat in Gambia.
Exactly.
And he's retired now.
But then.
Yes, then. And the whole family was in Gambia, so going to school in Gambia, actually, it's from Gambia to Senegal, 45 to an hour flight. and 6 hours if you go by road. So yeah,
Exactly.
so we wanted to stay close to family.
Exactly.
Wow. So then that's where we met. 2 years later, here you are transferring to Suffolk University
Boston.
in Boston.
Yes.
Before that, did you travel anywhere outside the continent before that?
Before I went to
Before Dakar,
Boston,
before
yes, yes,
leaving.
yes.
Okay,
Before I left Boston, I'd been to the UK and
okay,
America. I'd been to America initially.
okay,
Um,
okay,
I'd been
okay.
to America and I enjoyed it actually. So that is why the idea of going to America and it add the two to compare, right? I went to the UK and I
Mhm.
went to the States, and my personality felt more attracted to the way of life in America at that point.
Because you had a taste of both. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and so that's actually one of the reasons I picked SUDC, that's Suffolk University Dakar campus, so that I could have exactly a path
A
to the
path to
States.
the US.
Exactly.
Ah.
So I did that.
Mhm, mhm. And actually, that I'm curious. Before, so this is because so you visited the US, you visited UK, you could
hmm
compare and all that. But
hmm
even before that, what age was this? You remember?
So the first time I visited America, I couldn't have been more than like 14.
Aha,
So
that's a perfect age because I'm curious to know whether you had a certain perception of the US or the UK before even leaving the continent. Anything like
that's an
was
no,
there
that's
anything?
that's an interesting question. I mean, I would say that from my point of view, even though Nigeria was a former British colony,
Hmm.
right? We
Hmm.
were at the age where America dominated everything, right?
Right,
We were at that age, similar to you, I'm sure. Like we were interested in the American hip hop, right?
right.
You would hear American hip hop over UK hip hop or
Yeah,
rap.
I didn't even hear about UK hip hop or rap. Uh-huh.
Exactly. At that
Uh-huh.
point, maybe you would get a taste or two about some British artists. Like Craig David became big at that point,
Right, right.
but
Yes.
mostly American artists dominated the environment, and also at that point, like if you're watching movies as well, if at that point I was also thinking about going into banking, right? It was
Uh-huh.
all about the Wall Street. People weren't talking about the financial um, opportunities to
Mhm.
move into financial institutions in the UK. There
Mhm.
are, there
Mhm.
was then, there still is. London is the biggest financial market in the Eurozone, even post Brexit, even though that is also changing.
That
But
affected. Okay. Uh-huh.
but
Mhm.
but yeah, America was all. So at that point, it just felt the likeliest of options
To
and
go.
to go.
Yeah,
It did
you talked
feel
about music, you talked about movies, and
and
if I recall,
careers.
because we went to high school around the same time,
Yeah,
basketball too,
but exactly sports. I
sports.
mean, for everything, there's a reason Americans go things are bigger and better. It's
Yes,
just Americans definitely are very good at like selling and marketing the
selling and
country.
marketing the country. I remember when we were in high school, sneakers, just those shoes, the Jordans, and all these basketball players, the
Exactly.
Iversons, the Sharks, the Barclays, like everybody wanted those shoes. Everybody had this connection with America, and you wanted to be there. You wanted as many pairs as possible. Uh,
Yes.
so
Yes,
I see.
indeed.
So that perception was formed, and then you were able to visit both countries,
Boats.
the UK and the US. You still were pulled towards the US side, and
And
you ended up in the US. Like what?
yes, yeah, 2000,
2003.
2003, exactly. Yeah,
2000.
2003.
So
And
you ended up there in 2003 for to finish college. Yes.
yeah, and
Mhm.
remember, one thing that's important to also say, the pound was very FT then.
Yes. Paying for
This
school.
paying
Mhm.
for,
Mhm.
now in retrospect,
Yes.
it probably would have been cheaper to come to the UK because even though the pound was FT, at the time we both went to uni.
Yes.
This is what they call universities here. I know in the state they call it college, but
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
I
yeah,
got
they
you.
call it uni. But
Uni. Yes.
at the period we went to uni,
Hmm.
the tuition in the UK was actually much cheaper than it is now, and definitely a lot more reasonable than the States, especially if you're talking about private universities.
In terms of financing your education.
Tuition, yes.
Okay.
So,
okay.
but then when I was just looking at literally the exchange rates, I was just thinking, trying to convert.
Yes, definitely.
If your father, your sponsor, your parents, anyone is earning local currency and converting it to a foreign currency, you'd just be paying a lot more.
The pound was just scary to exchange.
It was. Yes. And that was another reason I chose to go to America.
100%. So you ended up in America. 2 years later, you were able to graduate. What did you study at SFEC?
I studied finance. My major was in finance, and I had no minor, which is I still recall taking a lot of sociology classes, and to my biggest regret, I never chose sociology as a minor. And it's because I just never thought about it. I was just taking sociology because I felt interested in, but I never actually put it down as a minor, though I would have probably had the required credits to have sociology as my minor.
So thinking about it now, so finance with a sociology minor would have been useful to you today?
I don't think it would have been useful. It would have just been something to just put on my CV to have it. But
I hear you.
And a lot of people went to America, they would usually say they had a major and they had a minor. Not everyone. A lot of people do that, but I just don't have that.
So you ended up at Suffolk, you did finance, and then you graduated.
I did.
For a lot of people, that you were one of the ones that you're such as academically, you're way too smart. I know this. I'll say this. I'm not pumping your tires. It's just true. From when we met, you were one of the straight A students. So you graduate. Now here you were. Did you work professionally in Boston at all?
I did. I worked for a year. So, as a lot of international students can attest to, once you graduate, you have the opportunity to apply for something called the OPT.
Right? For the 1 year.
It allows you to work for a year. So I took advantage of that, and I worked for a year at Investors Bank and Trust in downtown Boston. And I did that. Basically, it was fund accounting, just ensuring that like subscriptions and redemptions for mutual funds were booked.
And entry level for experience.
Exactly. And I did that for pretty much. Well, I think I could do it. I did it for 10 months because it took me maybe a month and a half to get a job, to get the opportunity. And then by the time I got in, so I think I did it for at least 10 months. And that was my educational, that was my professional experience in America.
In America. And then what? And then after all this love for America, for all these things that attracted you to America, you graduated there, you started your profession there, and the US was not enough? What happened?
Okay, so you're making me go back in time now.
Go back?
Yes. So what happened were things beyond my control. If you recall, the period we graduated was, again, post 9/11. Right, and a lot of things have changed.
Yes.
Basically, the rules got stricter, and previously, my understanding was that a lot of people that graduated, they found it easier to go into roles. I think the laws were lax,
more
in the sense that, like,
more relaxed
for corporations to sponsor international students to stay in the US.
Yes.
There are obviously legal rules they need to abide by, and there are payments they also need to make, and they are they need to also determine that they are individuals, they are citizens of that country that do not possess the necessary skill sets to take up those roles.
Yes, they needed to prioritize US-based citizens, and they have to exhaust the fact that they can't find a US citizen to fill that role before they can file for you.
Exactly. But my understanding, and I could be wrong, but my understanding was that post 9/11, those rules were made even more stringent. And I tried looking for a role. It did not work out. I tried getting into grad school. Okay. So in America, it's called grad school. Here, it's just called, in the UK, it's called doing your postgraduate.
Ah,
I could not do that, and I just like exhausted all the possible options.
I
And
see.
instead of staying in the States, I chose to go back to Nigeria.
I forgot that. I didn't know that. I didn't know you. Okay, and then So you
Now,
left. You left the U.S.
I did.
and for immigration reasons, for the fact that there was no opportunity, and you were not one of the ones that. So you wanted to do everything by the book, because you exhausting your PTO will mean being illegal here, and that will
Exactly.
have its effects. Yeah. So you're not
Exactly.
going back home. Okay.
So I went back home, and
Okay.
that is it's important I mention that because a lot of people always ask
Yes.
me, why did you leave America for the
Yes.
UK? Well,
Yes.
no, that's not what happened.
And that's why
I
I
left
asked.
America and I
I
went
thought
back
that
home.
too. Okay.
I went back home,
Mm-hmm.
and when I went back home, I worked in banking. So I did something called NYC, which is what every Nigerian is supposed to do if you graduate uni before the age of 30. You're supposed to serve your country for a year in something called the National Youth Service Corps, NYC.
I didn't know
And
that.
yes, that is something else entirely.
Nigeria
And
still has that.
it still occurs up till
Okay.
today.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if you want to work in Nigeria as a
I hear you.
Nigerian citizen
I hear you.
and you graduated before the age of 30, you must serve. It's a legal requirement.
I see.
And in that, it was brought in because post the Civil War, Nigeria Civil War in the 60s,
Yes.
late 60s,
Uh-huh.
the federal government wanted to find ways to connect up Nigerians because people felt that a lot of tribalism was behind the Civil War. And that was because a lot of people that were from different states, because Nigeria is a federal system,
Yes.
similar to America with states.
Yes.
And a lot of people, if you just finished school or whatever, you stayed in your states. Now, the point of NYC was that you can never serve in your state of origin. So if I am from a state called, for example, Ondo State in the Southwest,
Yes,
and I finish, I cannot serve NYC in that state.
Oh.
I can be posted to any other states.
Your services will be posted
states.
to another state.
Any other 35 states, because there are 36 states in them, including the capital, 37. You have to go to another state to work. The point was that people will get to just spread around, and you get to appreciate other cultures apart from the one you're. And that is what happened. And anyways, long story short, I give you some history about Nigeria, but I ended up serving for a year, and you can be put into any type of industry. It's not necessarily, they do try to place you in something you learned, but that is not necessarily always the case. I was fortunate enough to be posted to a bank. If you know, I did finance. I was posted to a bank. I was lucky, and I got retained in the bank.
Interesting.
Which is what happens if the place of post decides to keep you. And I stayed in that bank all in all 3 years, and then I chose to come to the UK to do my masters.
To do your masters in the UK. Before we go to the UK, let's go back to Nigeria again. You did that for what? For 1 year?
3 years.
3 years. Yeah. How long is the NYC? Is it 2
1 year?
1 year. 1 year, but you decided to be there for 3 years.
In Nigeria.
In Nigeria. What's your opinion about the NYC? NYC, you said?
NYC. Well,
what's your opinion? What's your general opinion about it?
Wow, you're trying to put me in a controversial spot.
It's just opinion.
If I'm being honest,
yes.
The NYC, when I think about our founding fathers, because I mean the Civil War happened soon after independence, and the reason for its inception, I think it was a worthy aim.
So the intention was worthy.
Exactly, but what's the expression? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Sometimes there are pros and cons, and I'm sure a lot of people have found it useful. Obviously, I was able to get a job by being retained by the party I was sent to, but I think it would be important if it would be better served if a lot of people that served now are being posted to places that utilize what they studied. That would be to me, a better aim for the people who are going through the process.
I see.
Because,
I
to be
see.
honest,
That makes
most
sense.
people get posted to teach.
To teach. So
That is that is
that necessarily can derail somebody from the whatever
the profession.
profession is.
It can happen. I also understand the need for it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, education is important, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a dearth of teachers, right? A lack of teachers, and
Yes.
we need to also improve the minds of
Right.
the youths, and they are the future. So I also understand why a lot of graduates are being posted to those roles, because
Mm.
there are not a lot of teachers, and we need people to teach, and people just graduated with those knowledge that can be imparted into. And to be clear, when I say teachers, usually like primary school,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes high school
Mm-hmm.
students.
I see. I see. No, I see. And I pick what you're putting there as far as like your opinion on it, the intention, the benefits to it, but at the same time, how this, you're not recommending this. I'm going there. I feel like it can be looked at again to see whether right now, today, whatever the intention was then, whether today is the best way to serve the youth that are under 30 that graduated.
Mhm.
But that's not for you to say.
No, it is not.
Bro, so here you are, Boston, graduated, worked for close to a year, about 10 months, ended up back home for
Mhm.
immigration reasons and just to stay, upright, because just Pereyi. And then you end up in Nigeria, worked 3 years, one
I
of
did.
which that 1 year was almost forced because you were just a young graduate. So you did 3 years
Yeah,
banking. You said,
yeah.
"Oh, let me go do my master's," and then
Hmm.
you ended up in the UK.
I did.
What was your
Uh,
master's on?
International banking and finance. So I've been consistent from undergrad.
So now I want to ask. So I recall this. You mentioned, you said, when you were talking about, when I said, did you have any kind of like perception of the US and stuff? You said you always wanted to do banking. So that was a young age that you wanted to do banking.
It is. It was.
Wow, young age you wanted to do banking, ended up in banking, even your masters in. All right. So here you. Why do you love banking?
Okay. So this is a very simple answer, and
Uh-huh.
I've actually mentioned this a few times over the years in various
Uh-huh.
forums.
Yes.
So this will not be on the internet for generations to
Yeah.
come. So
Uh-huh.
people should please not crucify me. But it was very simple. I remember going to church in Gambia,
Mhm.
and one day coming out of church and just looking at the cars that were parked outside, and obviously, I mentioned what my father did. He was
Yes.
in the foreign service,
A
and
diplomat. Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
eventually posted outside
Yeah.
to work in Gambia as a diplomat. But
Yeah.
in that situation, when I
Uh-huh.
came out and I looked out and I saw who had the nice cars, I could point to like 4 or 5 cars,
Uh-huh.
and the people who had those nice cars were
Uh-huh.
bankers. And this was, in secondary school. I was in senior secondary school, and
That is
just looking at
amazing.
that, it was very simple. Well, I want to be able to afford a nice car when
That's
I
amazing.
when I graduate. So it made logical sense to go into a career that I could see visibly the benefits of.
And the way you started that answer, I don't see anything wrong with that. At a very early age, you saw something that looked like prosperity. You saw something that looked like is rewarding. You saw something that looks like, hey, this is where I want to be. What's wrong with that level of determination and like just I've seen what I want early and I want to fixate on that, and you did it. I will preach that to my son, any young person. If you feel that way young and you just focus on that, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that, bro.
And I appreciate that. Obviously, I'm cognizant of the fact that
Yeah.
some, we are both millennials, and
Yes.
I also realize that some things are changing. I think for some people that are Gen Z that could be listening to this, they could think, well, that's a very materialistic way
Hmm.
to live life.
Hmm.
But what I would hope some people understand as well is that obviously me and you were people who were immigrants in the West, right?
Yes.
And a lot of immigrants can attest to the fact that we always, our parents, as parents, they wanted more for their children, and we as parents will want more for our kids.
Definitely.
And something that might also they can relate, that they must relate to, is the fact that this is why it's important to see people to aspire to, right?
Yes.
Especially as Black people.
Yes.
Because I'm sure there are some African Americans that would, look at life now and say, well, if they looked to their role models and they saw people that were in positions of authority in different industries, right?
Yeah.
If you look at somebody that looks like you and can say, well, they did that,
I can do it,
then you believe you can do that too, right?
Definitely, yes.
And that is why a lot of people, not to be, well, I'm not, just to speak freely.
Yes.
Some people obviously saw people that looked like Diddy, right? They saw rappers. They saw Jay-Z. They wanted to be rappers. They saw people that looked like LeBron. They wanted to be, basketballers.
Yes.
If you see a Black person as the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, you start thinking, if that person that looks like me can get there, then there is a path for me to get there as well. Absolutely. Or to get somewhere close there. And that is what I linked myself into at that age. And I was fortunate enough to have those role models around me. And I understand fully well that some people don't have such role models.
Yes.
But that's what I saw, and that's what I keyed into.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. The time that you saw this, I feel like now, this is about 25 years later. You're still a young man. I'm not aging you here. The reason why I'm saying 25 years later, I'm thinking about how long we've known each other. Plus when you actually had this thought, right?
Yeah.
Things have advanced to the point that you said a lot of people maybe don't have that, but I feel like as far as access goes, these younger ones that are your age, the age you were, right now, they have access to that in ways that you didn't have. The internet, where you can filter out people to look like this. YouTube is full of people that you can model after, whether it's CEOs and stuff, just seeing people that look like you. And I hope people use that. That's why I love the fact that at a very early age, you saw what you wanted to do, and here you are it. You are exactly that. Bro, I can't believe we're already halfway there. So I'm gonna just slow down because I want to go. I want to peel that onion more. But before that, halfway through my segment, what I like to do is pause, and because we're greedy like that, me and my listeners, we continuously want to learn. Is there something, and this is a game I play, is there something you want to teach me? And this is how it goes. You tell me something you think I don't know. If I know it, I'll say, come on, bro, I know a little. Give me another one. I'll give you another chance to teach me something else. But if I don't know, I'll admit to it and I'll tell you thank you. So is there anything you want to teach me that you think I don't know?
Well, no, there's something I want to say. I'm sure you know this, but given the fact that we're both from the countries we are, I figured it might be good to stir the pot a little for people from our individual or original countries listening in. So, obviously, I'm originally from Nigeria.
Yes.
One thing Nigerians are big on is known for all over the world is jollof rice. And now, jollof rice is, we claim it. There's a constant battle between Nigeria and Ghana as to who has the best jollof rice.
Especially those two, Ghana and Nigeria.
It's well known, but something I think it's also well known now, but in case it's not, and I did not know this until I went to live in Gambia, but jollof rice actually originated from the Senegambia area, from Senegal and Gambia.
Right.
Because Senegal and Gambia have the Wolof people.
Yes.
The tribe.
From the Jollof Empire, yes.
And it's also exactly, which also has its origination from the Jollof Empire, and they created the rice, right?
Yes.
And it's the same base, right? Tomato, peppers,
Yes.
red
Yes.
onions, all of that used to form the rice, and it was created there, and tasty.
Yes.
And then yes, somehow, I have no idea when Nigerians got hold of that recipe, took it, and for whatever reason colonized it and made it theirs, along with Ghanaians and some people. If you tell people, some people now that like,
Yeah.
jollof rice was not created in Nigeria, they would
Yes.
insult you and argue to the death of them. But that is the truth.
You know, yeah. You know what? I'm gonna take this one, and even though I knew that, but I'll take this one here because you break my rules. So what I'm gonna do is keep that as that teaching. Why? You're Nigerian, and there's a lot of people that don't know that. So I'm gonna take it for my audience this time instead of me. And Nigeria and Ghana, they've colonized, because you use that word, I'm gonna use it. They've colonized jollof rice, so that like here in the US, when I watch all these YouTubes and trying jollof, it's all about Nigeria and Ghana, and nothing about Senegambia, where they call it Benachin, or they call it Chep. You know.
Yeah.
So so bro, thank you for teaching the masses. I hope they learn something from that.
That's fine. And actually, one thing, so that before all my Nigerians come for me as well, a little like, just statements addendum is that I love like Chebujen, I love Chebuyap, I love the original, but also when I think about like those meals, it's the way I would think of even the fried rice I grew up eating as a kid in Nigeria to the Chinese fried rice I have in the West.
Right.
Are they both fried rice? Yes.
Yeah.
Do they have a lot of the basic ingredients? Yes. But I still find them to be very different.
Yeah.
I enjoy when I eat Chebujen, Chebuyap, like I don't feel like I'm eating Nigerian jollof rice.
I see what you're saying.
It's tasty. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But to me, it's a rice that has been cooked in a different type of way.
I hear you.
That is tasty and enjoyable.
Yeah.
But the Ghanaian jollof rice and the Nigerian jollof rice are very similar in taste.
They're similar, yes. Yeah.
One thing people of my generation will say is the difference was that Nigerian jollof rice growing up was made using long grain rice, whereas Ghanaian was made using basmati rice.
I see. I didn't know the difference. You ended up teaching me something.
But this has changed because a lot of Nigerians now use basmati rice to make jollof rice. So things have changed from when I was a kid to now. And I guess that's maybe what I'm trying to say is like sometimes in life, things, somebody originates something, somebody takes it and puts in their own flavor and soup. And for good or for ill, you can argue it could be better, it could be worse, but it is their own spin on something. But something is always built on something else,
Yes. No, that's true.
There's always a foundation, and even people like us, we stand on the shoulders of the people, who came before us.
Yes.
But that was just also my way to make sure my Nigerian brothers and sisters don't come for me when they hear this.
I see what you did there. You have to cover yourself, but you're right. You're right. That's very true. So, Ogidi boy, let's go. Thanks for that break, because and it's good information for people that don't know. And if you don't believe Pereyi, go do your research. Okay.